So excited to have you here tonight. We are almost at Christmas time, and I think I probably have the very best present ever. I am super, super thrilled to host tonight Meg Kilfoyle, who is the brand new shiny owner of Custom Fit Knits. So I know that you guys are all custom fit fans. You've probably done one. Go ahead and tell me in the comments if you have knit a custom fit sweater and what you think about it. And I will be bringing her on in just a second as soon as I greet everybody. So, hey, Amelia. Hey, Sandy. Barbara, so nice to see you. And so let me go ahead and bring Meg on.
Hi.
Hey, Meg.
How are you?
Great. I am so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. So why don't you maybe tell everybody a little bit about you, about your knitting journey, about your professional journey, and kind of how this all came to be, because it's fabulous.
Sure. So I don't remember not knowing how to knit. I've been knitting for a very long time, most of my life. We think that my mother first put yarn in my hands as an attempt to get me to sit still. That didn't really work, but the yarn stuck. So I really started knitting significantly more when I went to university. And started hanging out with more knitters at university and learning more about Canadian yarns because of where I went to school. And then I took a weird, twisty, turny path to a career. And so now I do data science, which is a combination of computer programming and data analytics. And now I do custom fit as well. So that's been an exciting new change this year.
How is that? How did that fit together? I mean, so just let me back up and tell everybody, if you're not familiar with custom fit, it was designed originally. I told you my dogs wouldn't bark, but I lied. There they are.
Don't worry, mine will go off at some point too. It'll be great.
They'll probably hear mine. So custom, oh my gosh, where was I?
We can talk. So what is custom fit?
Right.
Custom
so it was
fit,
started by Amy Herzog, who's a designer, right?
Yes.
And so she developed this concept that allowed people to generate their own patterns, or to generate patterns based on their own measurements and their own gauge, which is a flipping miracle, right?
Right. And what made custom fit especially unique in the marketplace is that it did hourglass shaping, which is it, and it started with hourglass shaping, which is often the hardest to do because it takes the most measurements and the most programming to make a perfectly fitted hourglass sweater. Sorry.
But the reason hourglass is so important is because, I mean, and Amy's kind of a busty girl, right? And I think that was probably, she was responding to issues with that. When you have an hourglass shaping, you can accommodate a large bust without having your sweater fall off your shoulders.
And the joy of doing it with custom fit with a software is that it fits your measurements perfectly. So if you tend to be more top heavy, then it allows that shaping while still doing a waist that fits you exactly. Or same with if you tend to be hippier, it lets that adjust, and it adjusts to your body rather than the standard measurements that everyone is used to, and then having to adjust for how your body is different from that, because everybody's unique.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think is so brilliant about it is she moves. I mean, we can all do the shaping for a bust line and make it larger, but she moves that shaping in so that the shaping hits right in line with your bust points so that your fronts and backs can be different.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love it so much. I started using it, I think 7 years ago. Really, really early in custom fit's existence is when I'd started using it for sweaters, and I have maybe knit one or two since then that are not custom fit, and I knit a lot of sweaters, like an unreasonable number of sweaters.
How many? Are you one a month? Are you what, 10 a year?
Right now, I'm probably at close to 10 a year. Some of that has
fantastic.
slowed down as I need to spend time doing other parts of the business, but previously it would be a slow year would be 6.
Wow. Hmm. Hey, Terry, nice to see you. Jal. Oh, let's see. Amelia's done custom fit. I know Terry's done custom fit. Sandy has. Jal has. Valerie, I don't know if you have ever done a custom fit. Valerie's in Great Britain. Gwen, I know you have. And Jenna. Oh, it's so nice to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. So we were all in love with custom fit. You, me, everybody. I started it at the shop and I was doing it for everybody, taking measurements and making patterns. And it was just amazing. And then what was it? 2 years ago, Amy made the announcement that she was going to stop, right? When was that?
January this
Just
year.
this past January?
Time is a weird soup, man.
Oh man, really? Not just this past January, 2020?
Yes. 2021.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Time is a weird soup.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay. Just this year.
Time is a weird soup. Yeah, it was just this year because I'm about to have to file my year-end taxes for the first time for the business.
Gosh. Okay, so what were you thinking? I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? What were you thinking?
That's pretty much what happened. I got the email in my office. I immediately burst into tears. I then walked across the house to my husband and it's like, Amy is closing custom fit. And he looked at me, quirked one eyebrow up and went, are you going to cry about it or do something about it? Because that is just who he is. And I was like, oh, that's right. I could do something about this. And so I reached out to Amy later that day and we started working out a deal to keep it going. I was lucky enough that I met Amy at Make Wear Love a few years in a row. So we'd gotten to know each other. And at one of my earlier custom fit retreats at Make Wear Love, I had asked her about the stack because I was learning to program and learning different bits of programming at that time. So I had 4 years ago intentionally started learning the software that custom fit runs on in the hopes of one day getting to work with Amy.
Wow.
And then that strange twist of fate brought me there. Yeah, that's correct, Meredith. Amy brought in help a couple of years ago to slow down and start going back to work. But this year is when it was announced it was going to be closed.
Yeah.
And then unclosed.
We were all dying. I mean, I reached out to my daughter, as I think I told you. She's a software engineer. And I'm like, could you do this? And she's like, well, maybe.
Yeah, Amy was looking for a really specific skill set to be able to take it on. It would have to be someone that knows the programming part, but is also so deeply passionate and in the weeds about sweater design,
right?
And sweaters that fit and what that should look like. That it would be a hard business to pass on.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter does knit a lot of the custom fit because she has a very challenging body. She's very, very tiny, but she has a very large bust. So it's been a godsend for her. She only does custom fits anymore herself.
Yeah,
but
once you start, they're really hard to stop.
Yeah.
My shoulders are very wide for the rest of my measurements.
Are they?
Which I did not realize until custom fitting my sweaters and realizing the difference it made between standard sweater patterns and custom fit sweaters.
I think it's been so interesting for my people. So I have this membership site and we do a lot of custom fit. I think I talked to you about that.
Yeah.
To get everybody's measurements and for them to kind of see how it works in custom fit and then, extrapolate that to other designs or just be more aware of your body. And
yeah.
I mean, it really is amazing.
And there's that magic look on someone's face wearing a sweater that is perfectly fitted to them, that perfectly fits their style, that perfectly fits their body. There is just sweater magic.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so satisfying.
Yeah.
And so many. So one of the things, I have a whole list of stuff I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
How has it been so far? It can't have been easy to pivot from I'd like to work for you one day to, oh my gosh, all the things, right? Business and
It's been a lot. In terms of life timing, it wasn't ideal for me to buy a business this spring. I was actually pretty sick at the time. But it was something that I was deeply passionate about and knew that I would be able to do. So there's been a lot of getting through things as they come. Right now it's accounting, but there are lots of different pieces that it didn't occur to me would go into the business. So it's been a lot of keeping things running and keeping things going and figuring out where I want to take this in the future as more of a long-term thing. But
sure.
the priority has been keep it running.
Right. This is Ellen. One of her first sweaters was a custom fit, and it fits her beautifully.
I love hearing that. I love hearing about people's sweaters. I love hearing the amount of positive, you can do this, we're so happy you're here, that I got when I bought the business. I was really afraid that people would be upset that I wasn't Amy. And getting that wave of love, getting that wave of positive enforcement has been amazing.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Thank you for everyone that's reached out and for sharing your favorite sweaters.
Yeah, no, everybody is delighted. And I think it's just so exciting for them to actually meet you and see you and, hear about what was the biggest surprise for you when you got in? When I open a yarn store, people are like, oh, it must be so wonderful to own a yarn store. You get to sit around and knit all day. It's like, yeah, no, not even close.
I think one of the funniest things for me is I now own a sweater pattern business and get to knit significantly less than I did before.
Exactly.
A lot more of my time is on the code and on the business side of it and on the marketing side of it. And I'm just starting to get time in for designing and knitting and getting to spend more time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I would say, one of the biggest surprises for me.
Had you always kind of wanted to do designing? Did you do the custom fit design your own a lot?
So I've almost always done custom fit design my own. I've knit a lot of the sweaters as they are, but I've also done a lot of mashing together multiple patterns or taking an idea and putting it on a custom fit, just like framework.
Right.
So that works really well if you like cables, which are really hard to standardize for everyone, but easier to create a framework that works for you and plug those in and add those together. So I've done a lot of that. I've done some hat designing. I had most of a hat collection ready to go in January that's been indefinitely paused while I figure out other pieces. And there's a stack of hats just off screen over there.
So I know that custom fit now allows you to do cowls and things like that. Is hat a thing that you see in the future?
Possibly. There could be hats, there could be mittens, there could be socks. I am fortunate in that Kate Atherley has agreed to stay on. And so you'll hear from her if you reach out to support. We just released her first collection in custom fit. But she has books and has done a lot of the math for custom fit mittens, custom fit socks. So there have been conversations there, but I think we'd be a few years out at this point still.
Yeah, she's amazing. She really is an amazing designer and just a lovely person. And yeah, she is like the customer service person. She is the face.
Yes. And if you ever reach out with questions, you get Kate. And having her has been invaluable to giving me the time to be able to work on the code.
Yeah. How big is your team?
Well, there's me and there's Kate.
Okay. I love it. We don't need a huge team, but we do need a good team.
Yes. I'm also fortunate in that I have a brother that's a software developer. So if I have tricksy problems, mm-hmm. he will talk them through with me.
Yeah.
But it's me and Kate.
So I have a question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want, but what is the platform that you use for it? Is it a WordPress, a custom site? Is it just a SQL server kind of thing?
So it is an app that is running. So what you see on Custom Fit is the customfit.amyherzog.com is an app that runs in its own platform. WordPress site is most of the rest of the site. So where you'll see Amy's blog and where you'll see the storefront is in WordPress. And the plan is to move that to a different front end that I'm more familiar with. That I think will give us a more seamless checkout experience where you can check out in the app. That's the plan.
Yeah. It's hard. I get it. I have 2 sites and, it's sites, a membership site, and it's a mess.
And no matter how much you intentionally build to try and keep things separate and easy to take apart, it's not until you start trying to take it apart that you realize what's been tied together really tightly.
Yeah. So what is your favorite aspect of it? I mean, what makes you think about it? I mean, what makes you so jazzed?
My favorite thing about custom fit is seeing people in the sweaters that fit them perfectly, that make them feel like $1 million. So whatever that style is for you, whatever that yarn or pattern is, that's what makes this amazing for me. Plus, I'm not sure I could go back to knitting regular sweater patterns, so I desperately needed this to keep existing.
So what we do a lot of times in the shop is there'll be a pattern and it will be, this is horrible, you probably do it too. It'll be a construction that we don't like, it'll be top down or whatever. We'll buy the pattern and then we'll just redo it in custom fit.
Yes, and take the elements of it and see how that works out. Yeah.
How has that been in terms of working with other designers? Is everybody should be really supportive because you have to buy both patterns anyway, right?
So I haven't talked to other designers at this point. my life has sort of been on the slow roll of getting things running. It depends. The one I know that regularly designs with custom fit type stuff is Kim McBrien Evans of Indigo Dragonfly, who will write her patterns both so they can be knit with a standard set of measurements, as well as give you a custom framework. So here's how you set it up in custom fit, and here's what numbers you plug in. So that same type of exercise that you would do comparing the 2 patterns.
Yeah.
But it's hard to explain, and it can be hard to support. So I'm not sure how many other designers would be interested in it.
Yeah. We do, like I said, we do a lot of that. And it's just a matter of kind of, it's not as, using custom fit, I don't know, is as user friendly if you're designing your own for the average knitter as it is for somebody who's very, very experienced knitting things and reading patterns and translating that.
And I really recommend starting with a standard pattern in custom fit and get a feel for something simple, something easy, and get the wheels under them and going before they move on to something more complex, like designing their own or trying to plug and play, unless they have support.
Right. That's what I do. I give support. Yeah. So we do, I'll decide on a pattern that is like simple. So we had this really great yarn. It's this cashmere. This is the sweater that I'm wearing. And it's the sweater that Ellen Orr talked about. And I think, let's see, Jal knit one.
You knit a black cashmere sweater?
I know.
That's gorgeous.
Isn't it crazy? So the yarn was so expensive. I'm thinking, okay, how do we minimize yarn usage, right? V-neck, 3/4 sleeve, close fit.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite sweaters, and it is a close fit plain sweater that lets the really bright, wild yarn show itself off.
It's beautiful. And did you design that? Just say, hey, I just want a basic V-neck?
No, this is a Firth.
Okay.
I made a list of my favorite custom fit sweaters for this, and then went and picked a couple out to wear.
Nice. So why don't you tell us what your favorites are?
Sure. Here's my favorite. My favorites, going from easiest and first. My very, very first custom sweater was a drumlin cardigan, which is just a simple cardigan. It's a pullover. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's a great idea. I hadn't thought of that. So the drumlin cardigan is really simple. It has really clean lines. It has pockets. And it is my very first custom fit sweater that I ever knit. I was fresh out of university. and I bought the yarn off Ravelry on a subway platform.
What do you mean?
Like at lunch, I ran down to the subway and someone brought me the yarn from the internet and I gave them money.
Okay. So this is really cute.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites to wear in whatever yarn you have. It's great for a summer knit if you have something that's like a linen or a cotton. And it's great for like a winter knit to have something that's light to throw over and wear under your coat. It's one of my most versatile favorites.
So did you do it to be, it looks to me like it comes down over, fully over the rear end.
You can adjust your custom fit
Right.
depending on how long you want it to be. I've knit some, my preference is always really long sweaters.
Mhm.
So most of mine are tunic length or longer. But if that doesn't fit your style, you can do shorter.
Yeah, I tend to like it. I mean, for a long sweater, tunic length. It's funny, and I would love for you to talk about it with
Sure.
everybody. One of the things that I get with custom fit, and I tell people, because right now not everybody's able to come in the shop and let me measure them. They have to measure themselves. So there's this hesitation to give me all the measurements. I'm like, okay, where is your weight? What is your waist measurement? What is your, what is your waist to armpit? What is your average sweater length? What is your short sweater length? People are like, I'm not going to fill out the short sweater length. I would never wear a short sweater. It's like, no, you have to have it.
It's easier to measure ahead of time. One of the things I've also sometimes done with people is switch to a unit of measurement they're not familiar with. So if the person thinks in centimeters, measure in inches. If the person thinks in inches, measure in centimeters. Because the numbers are just numbers.
Right. That's a brilliant idea. But you know what I'm saying is like you have to have all of the circumferences at the various lengths because, and I'm assuming, because I don't see into this system, but I'm assuming that this system looks at your body over, the changes in your circumference over the length.
It does, depending on the sweater length. You don't have to put all of them in, but you have to put the ones that are used. Mm-hmm. So even while you're saying you might not use short, I always recommend taking the measurement because you never know when you're going to accidentally end up using it for something. You're thinking I'm never going to use that short sweater length, and then you see something that's really cute, or that you want to add a ruffle or something to the bottom.
So we don't actually need it. We don't actually need the short sweater circumference if somebody really just doesn't want to do that.
Shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. And then I guess another thing I was interested in for me, like long sweater length, that to me is like not tunic length. It's kind of around the fullest part of your hip.
So they are two separate measurements.
Right.
There's a tunic and then there's I think of long sweater length as being like the tips of your fingers if your hands are all the way down.
And a tunic.
And a tunic is a little longer. But again, some of that's going to be personal preference. I recommend Amy has videos on YouTube still on how to do the measurements or ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you are interested in custom fit and you haven't done that, that's something that we have walked people through via Zoom. You get a partner, and I think it's really good to kind of have those measurements and know what you need. I mean, right?
Yeah, it's good to have those measurements too if you're looking at, even if you're using it to look at other patterns, being able to see the schematic of another pattern with your measurements and being able to look and compare and see where you might need to do some extra math.
So what I've noticed too is that with certain body shapes, the custom fit will default to a particular shape. Have you seen that?
It's attached to the sweaters. So the sweaters have defaults. There shouldn't be any body defaults.
So what I have noticed from having done a lot of custom fits from a lot of people is that if the average sweater length is smaller than the waist measurement, I mean, if the circumference at average sweater length is smaller than waist, it will default to kind of an A-line.
It will make it fit that body, whether the hourglass actually looks like a traditional hourglass or not. Hourglass means shaped to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So it would look similar to an A-shape, A-line.
Yeah. Are there any, so as people go through, do you feel like there are any body shapes that should shy away from this or that kind of shaping? Like if somebody wants a long straight sweater, and I mean, I'm just speaking from our experience. If they have kind of a pear shape and they're very tiny here, and they want a straight sweater that comes down, fully over the hip, then you get a lot of extra fabric up in here. Do you know what I'm saying?
So I don't really have a lot of the strong opinions on how things should fit and how things should look, because it's all personal preference.
Sure.
Right? I wear lots of things that are not advised based on my body type. So I've just sort of accepted that. Meredith had a question saying it seems to me the waist should be the smallest area to get the close fit. In this case, it would be about a standard amount of ease running through the whole body using the measurements for an hourglass shape.
Meredith, does that answer your question? So we've been doing the measurement of the waist maybe an inch above the belly button and kind of make people move so that you see where
the wiggle back and forth to figure out where it's gonna settle to. It's classic.
Yeah, it's so cute. It's so funny. Meredith's not sure. So Meredith has been doing some custom fit, and we've been really working hard to get hers to fit just right. So yeah. She's thinking, I'm thinking on the issue. So anyway, she and Rita both, who are on this live, have been some of the questions that I've sent forward to Kate. Bless her heart.
It's one of the interesting things about doing a software that does sweaters for everyone is you get to learn about all the different shapes and all the different ways that our bodies look and how to. It amazes me that anything off the rack ever fits. Is I think what custom fit has really underlined for me this whole time. It is amazing that anything off the rack fits.
Well, they largely don't fit. You definitely see women who are busty with set-in sleeves that hang off the shoulder, and it's sloppy and they hate it, but they think they have no options, but there are options. And I think that's wonderful when, like I said, when somebody gets that
moment.
Yes, that moment. It's amazing. So I wanted to invite anybody who is on the call to, maybe ask Meg a question if there's something you want to know. She's graciously agreed to answer your questions. And so it's been interesting for me having dealt with so many different knitters, and getting sweaters together for them. I'm coming to this from a kind of a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like making sweaters for other people or creating patterns for other people. So, yeah. And I'm sure Kate gets a lot of that as well.
Yes.
So, all right.
I can go over a couple of my other favorite sweaters
please.
If you want to show. So the sweater I'm wearing right now is a Firth Pullover.
Okay.
It was probably my second sweater that I knit. And it is a very simple pullover type sweater. And I love something like this in order to show off a yarn that is louder. So being able to have a simple sweater with loud yarn. If you're looking for, or you can knit something classic in a solid or a semi-solid. But if you have a really strong variegated that you're looking to figure out, how do I make this into a sweater? That's a great option. In this case, it's a speckled that was very speckled, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. So I let the yarn be loud on a simpler sweater.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to see if I can give you the whole solo. Yeah, okay.
So this is the sweater.
So pretty. And you did an hourglass and a close fit.
This is an hourglass and a close fit. Yeah.
Right. So, right. So
I see the question, where's the best way to see the patterns I offer? Some of them are in Ravelry. I have been struggling to access Ravelry for the last year. So you're better off seeing my patterns on customfitknits.com. We'll refer you to customfit.amyherzog.com. Eventually, that's where Custom Fit will live, but the moving piece has been slow. And you'll be able to log in and see the patterns that are available within Custom Fit there.
Well, I'm always trying to, whenever I try to get into my account, I get into the main one. And when I'm trying to get into the main one, I get into mine. So let's see. I'm trying to show Zosha the all the patterns. Here we go.
There are, I think, more than 100.
Yeah, they are amazing.
Before you start off-roading.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let me show this up here. Okay, so these are the patterns. This is amyherzogdesigns.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they are all really lovely.
Yeah. So some of those patterns are custom fit and some of them aren't. Most of them are, but not all of them.
But if you wanted to, you could certainly make these custom fit.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, just really pretty. You could spend your whole knitting life just knitting custom fit.
I do.
Exactly. Gwen, are you okay? While you're on here, if you enjoy this, please definitely, give us a like, and give the video a like, and subscribe if you have a chance, if you haven't done that. So we've done a bunch of these. The curlew, I did. That's not a custom fit. I did Cypress Cove, but like you, I do mainly design my own.
Yeah.
So, were there any other questions or comments that we had from you guys? Gwen, all right, Gwen's okay. I'm looking at Gwen has an angry face. I always worry about that. Isn't that silly? I don't know why. So what is next? What are you going to be, what can we expect in the next year?
So I'm hoping in the next year to have 4 patterns out over the space of the year and be able to release those. Other than that, I'm hoping in the next year to get it moved to a platform that it's easier for me to work in. So less of my attention has to go to that and more of it can go towards what's coming next. This year I featured a pattern every week on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and featured a different pattern, and there were conversations about those patterns in the comments, which was great. So I think we're going to continue that this year as well. So if you're looking for sweater inspiration, we're at Custom Fit Knits on all platforms.
Yeah, definitely follow Meg and Custom Fit on Instagram and Facebook and all of those so you can see that stuff.
Yeah. And so then get the platform moved. That's the big goal.
The big move. So one of the things people are always asking, let's see, here we go.
No, I am hoping that there will be no changes to the site. The username should continue to exist as they are. I'm not planning on changing anything, just moving where it's pointed and being able to check out within the app rather than having to go to a separate store in order to buy credits if you're not a subscriber.
Yeah.
A Maker Plus.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is, and I did a blog post about this past week, you can do any sweater in any gauge,
Yes.
right? It doesn't mean that you should.
Correct.
Talk about that a little bit from your perspective.
So the easiest example to come up with is cables. You can design any of the sweaters to use any gauge with the cabled sweaters in custom fit. It's not recommended because the cables will end up being much wider or much smaller, and you don't get the same visual effect when you don't have that certain percentage of the sweater taken up. But there's also more structural reasons not to try something. So something with a really small shoulder width, if you have a really large gauge, the pattern generator will have a hard time making it fit. And sometimes that can cause issues. The other examples are going to be if you're looking for something that's really tailored and holds up, 100% silk won't get you there. 100% silk will always try and escape. It's just how silk works.
Right.
So that won't give you that nice tight ribbing that you want to see if that's what you're looking for. So I think that's an example of a sweater with a gauge not matching.
Yeah. I think of it in terms of like if you're looking for a jacket or something with a lot of structure, you're not going to get that with a fine gauge, you know. And if you're looking for something that's nice and drapey, what you love about it is the way the front panels sort of drape, you're not going to get that with a super bulky yarn.
Yes. And then the fiber content makes a difference too, right? If you have much smoother wool, you're going to end up with something with more drape. If you end up with a toothier wool, you're going to end up with something that's a little more structured, like
Yes.
jacket.
Absolutely. So it's, you know, anybody can do it, but I think it's a good idea to stick close to the recommended gauge. Like if the gauge says that it's DK, you probably could go, you know, light DK, heavy DK, maybe heavy sport or whatever, but not much difference. Would you agree with that?
It's going to come down to, have you swatched that to see if you like it? And that's going to be my constant answer to this question. Have you swatched that? Because sometimes you'll think a yarn will work because on paper it looks really similar, and you'll swatch it and you'll find that you really don't care for that. So swatching and getting to know your swatches, not just as an exercise in checking the stitches in the rows, but also feeling it, hanging it up in front of your face to decide if you like how it drapes or if you don't think that it's going to do that. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, reaching out to your local yarn store and asking for help with what you're doing, and you'd be able to advise people, those might not match, but here's a direction that might work better.
Right. Absolutely. People hate to swatch.
I love swatching, which is one of those strange challenges, but in my mind, it's a completely separate exercise from the actual knitting of the sweater. It is, yeah. I don't remember who it was on Instagram that called it going on a date with your yarn.
That's what I always say. Yeah.
It's figuring out if this is going to work out for you long term before you put in that huge investment of time.
Right. And I always say that you should swatch where you're going to knit it.
Yes. That's very important. I might have examples.
We're always on our best behavior, when we're always on our best behavior when we're on our first date or whatever,
Yes.
But then when you begin to relax into yourself, or the guy begins to relax into himself, or the girl or whatever, then it could be a completely different story.
Somewhere in here, I have an example of where my gauge changed radically. Here we go. These two are the exact same yarn on the exact same needle and are almost 4 stitches over 4 inches different.
Wow.
They're actually more than that than I think
what
about it.
happened?
This one. I knit this one on a plane.
Right.
I knit this one on my couch.
Yes. So true.
I found out that I was in trouble partway through a sleeve. Don't be me.
Yeah. I think we all do. We all do that. I noticed that, like, at the shop, everybody's very careful. They're on their best behavior.
Yeah.
I normally knit really loosely, but I'm doing just fine. Or I knit tightly, but I'm doing just fine. And then they get home and they're themselves.
There's one in here. There's two. These two do the same thing, where I can actually see where halfway through I went somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also found that the pandemic over the last 2 years has changed my gauge.
Really?
Because just the general life stress levels. So I can't pick up a project that's 2 years old anymore because my gauge has changed so significantly.
Wow, that's interesting.
So if you're looking for an excuse over the winter to go back and frog a bunch of projects that are haunting your closet, take a look at your gauge and see if it's changed.
Yeah, there is that. We have a thing called a PhD program, projects
Nice.
half done. We pull them out and, you have to decide if you actually want to finish it.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes what spoke to you a few years ago doesn't speak to you now, and that's fine.
Exactly. So when we were talking the other day, you said something that just kind of blew my mind. That we were talking about knitting top down, and I'm not a real fan of top down in the round. I'm big on seams. Everybody who knows me knows I'm big on seams. Meg is big on seams also.
Big on seams.
Huge on seams. But you asked me if I had ever knit my sleeves from the top down. And I said, you mean like contiguous? And you're like, no, just upside down. And I was like, whoa, mind blown.
So this is a thing I started doing a few years ago with gradients, especially, or when I'm about to run out of yarn, which has happened more than I care to admit. So I will start at the top, just not continuous, not attached, just at the piece, and I will knit it backwards. So that does take being able to sit there and figure out which increase you need to sub your decreases for, other way around, which decreases you need to sub your increases for, because you start with more, and figuring out how to cast on. But if you are not convinced you're going to make it to the end of that sleeve, like if you're very sure you're not going to make it to the end of that sleeve, knitting them both at the same time from the top down has gotten me some lovely 3/4 options while using all of the yarn.
I love that. I think that's hilarious. I mean, that's so good. And we were talking about that today in our live session with Club Crazy for You. And, when you knit it in the opposite direction, I think the only thing is going to be that at the seam, it's going to appear to be in the center of the stitch, but nobody is looking that closely.
No one is looking that close. And if they are right near your elbow.
Right. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah. So I thought that was a really great answer to the, I like to knit top down because, run out of yarn and blah, blah, blah. But really need those seams for the structure.
You really do need the seams for the structure, especially in a either looser gauge or yarn that is more desperately attempting to escape. So like your silks or your bamboos or something superwash needs that extra structure to hold the seam on the shoulder and to hold the top of the sleeve where it should be.
Yeah, and it keeps it square on your body,
and it keeps it for years. Right. You don't end up with the stretch over time because the seam is there to support it.
Yeah. So we have. Do you use a lot of superwash wool?
I use a complete mix. I started, like I would say 10 years ago, I used almost exclusively superwash wool. Right now, I can see in my stash that I've been migrating away from. I've been migrating away towards toothier, woollier, made in the U.S. and Canada yarns.
Yeah. So Sandy's excited about it. We talked about this today.
Yeah, it works if you're doing it even if you're knitting bottom up, if you don't want to end up stranded on second sleeve syndrome, knitting them 2 at a time. So you can look at tutorials for like knitting 2 at a time socks. And it's great because then you can't abandon them halfway through. It's also great if you're planning on messing with your numbers. So when you knit them both at the same time, you're not sitting there 2 months later with a sleeve being like, I know I changed things here. Do I know what? I do not. They're the same.
I think that's really good. So we have had a lot of discussions about superwash wool, and you know, I feel like superwash wool needs to go in the dryer. After you wash it, it needs to go in the dryer to kind of pull it back in because it stretches out. And a lot of other people are like, I never put my stuff in the dryer, so I measure my gauge swatch after it's washed and stretched out. So I would be interested in your thoughts on that.
So a version of Kate Atherley lives in my head because I have known her for a very long time. And you should always wash your swatches as you intend to wash the finished object. Always. So in my case, I rarely put any yarn in the dryer. But I have a big spin dryer for drying my sweaters because I have a lot of sweaters. And so I will run my swatches through the spin dryer.
So you just like drain and spin so that the moisture is out of it, and then you just lay it out?
Yeah. So you can either I happen to have a big industrial one that takes the place of my dryer for a lot of my functions. Or you can use a salad spinner.
Right.
If you're looking for approximately the same.
So Jenna, I think she's saying exactly what you're saying, is that, you know, if you're going to wash it and you're not going to put it in the dryer and you measure your gauge that way, then totally cool.
Yeah. Just measure as you can, the gauge swatch, and measure as you intend to go on. One of the other advices that I got early in my sweater knitting career was, once your swatch is dry, consider hanging it up on a clothesline for a couple days so you start to see the stretch that you would see on a finished sweater.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, so you don't want to do it when it's wet because that'll really skew it. But once it's dry, if you want to hang it up, you sort of get that feel for what would a full sweater do over a longer period of time and see if it changes. Mm-hmm. I'm glad Amelia got to knit 2 sleeves at the same time. It's a great choice.
Say again? Yeah. Amelia did. So, yeah, getting on Sleeve Island is really no fun, you know. I personally like knitting it in pieces. I like knitting them one at a time because I get that finished object hit every time I buy something off. It's like, ooh, I finished a sleeve. Ooh, I finished a sleeve. You know, but that's just me.
I get stuck on Button Band Island.
Yes, the finishing.
Button Band Island is forever. The actual finishing is fine. Sewing it in, sewing on buttons, that's fine. Picking up for a button band, forever.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will often have like a stack of pieces in the corner of my office, just waiting for me to have the light and the time to sit down there and pick up button bands.
Yeah. I don't like I don't like to put buttons on my sweater because I change my mind. I end up with just, you know, let's put a shawl pin in it. That's why I like the ones that are sort of open. I don't know, but I might have to do one with a button. Like, I love the one that Kate Atherley just came out with that we were talking about, Preston.
The Preston?
I'm going to show that because this is what I'm thinking about for our next knit along because I think it's so cute. And it would be so cute in the Juniper Moon Santa Cruz. It's just beautiful. Let me see if I can find that. It's here. Yes, isn't this cute, ladies? Can you see that? I love this. I think this is just adorable. And you could, if you wanted to put buttons on that, but
it's designed so that there's actually space between. You would have to add to the button bands in order to be able to get buttons and make it fit.
Right.
It is meant to be worn open, or with
really cute.
Yeah, shawl pin. I definitely have a few sweaters that I've worn for multiple years where I've made buttonholes on both sides and just never sewn buttons on. So it's really easy if you want to stick a shawl pin through.
Yeah.
If you're never sure if you're going to put buttons on it or not, one of the things I will sometimes do is put buttonholes on both sides so that when I go back and sew on buttons, all I'm doing is closing up that hole. So I know exactly where they go because they're exactly in the same space on both sides.
That is brilliant.
Or then when you decide that you're not actually going to do that. You have holes to put a shawl pin through or some other decoration.
So what I do when I do buttons is, and this isn't about doing the holes on both sides, but I do, I make like a cufflink button.
Nice.
So I just button it through, and then I can take it out if I need to, because, fancy buttons.
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes you want the buttons on another sweater. They're attached to that one.
Yes. And sometimes that sweater gets worn out or whatever, or you're just tired of it, or you decide you don't like that color anymore, or you accidentally felt it or stain it. Yeah. So, all right. Looking to see if we have any other comments. So we have a couple minutes left. What is your next favorite sweater?
My next favorite sweater actually isn't a custom fit sweater. It is a custom fit like mashup by Kim O'Brien Evans called the Dopamine. And Kim has been the master of figuring out how to make stripes work for a lot of custom fit. It still can't be built into custom fit because of the number of varieties, but Kim has figured out ways to make the waist shaping accentuated by using different size stripes. It is one of the first mashups that I ever knit, and I think I have 6 of them.
This one.
Yes.
That's very cute.
And so it gives the formula for how to figure out where the stripes go at the middle to accentuate that hourglass even more.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have 6 of them, and they're perfect for if you want to try out stripes if you only have a couple left of each color, or there's one color that you want but you're just looking for a pop of. So that's one of my absolute favorites.
So tell me, I mean, when you're talking about the stripes, I mean, the stripes at the armhole bind off match the stripes. They should match the stripes at the sleeve cap bind off, right?
Yes, they do.
Right. So, I mean, is it something different than that? Like it's starting at the beginning? Oh, I guess figuring it out starting at the beginning if you're not working.
Figuring that piece out ends up being more complicated to build in than it is to explain how to find the numbers. I'm talking about if you look at the waist shaping right by your hand.
Yes.
Where the stripe pattern changes.
I see. Very cute.
Yeah. And again, it's an open asymmetrical sweater.
Do you hear a lot of women say, I don't wear horizontal stripes? And what do you think about that? Because this is obviously very cute.
I have heard that. And I would say consider looking at some of Kim's patterns, because she's done such a great job of figuring out ways to make those stripes really flattering for a whole range of body shapes. I only have one more on my favorite list, which is the Take Wing cardigan. Built in.
I'm going to bring it up on Ravelry if I can.
Yep.
Hello.
And that one is built into custom fit. It's got a light textured pattern, so it adds a little bit. And I think I have 2 or 3 of them. They tend to work really well in a heavier yarn, which is great if you live in a place where winter is cold and you're looking for a sweater that feels like a hug.
Like Canada, say.
Yeah, like Canada.
But how cold is it where you are right now?
Right now, it's hovering just under 0 degrees Celsius, which is freezing. And my entire driveway is a sheet of black ice. We cannot currently safely leave the house.
Mm-mm. All right, Take Wing. Oh, that's cute. Let's see. I'll bring this up. That is cute.
Yeah. So it's that light texturing. It feels like a hug.
Is that a worsted weight? Did you say?
I think that one is a worsted weight. I've done it in an Aran and I've done it in a DK.
Very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like a V-neck.
Yeah, I love a V-neck. I think that's what, just looking at it here, love a V-neck.
Yeah, I love a V-neck too. All right, so, oh my, this person's banned. So, Yeah, very cool. So I'm excited. I know that probably what's coming up for you over the next year or so is not going to be all that visible to the
Not
average
really.
user, right?
It's not going to be super visible to the average user. It's going to be a lot of back end stuff as this continues to develop. It's been less than a year.
Yeah, I'm just blown away when you said that was
Time is
January. I'm like,
wild.
oh my goodness, really? Just
So
January?
things will be less visible, but at least I hope to you as well. The important part to me is custom fit is still there, and custom
Right.
fit will continue to still be there.
Yeah.
And while it'll be slow growth for a while, it will still be there, and we'll continue to grow slowly and get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I'm excited to have you as a partner for Club Crazy for You. And it's
Yeah, so excited
very,
to have you as part of our local yarn store system,
yeah, thank you. Thank you so
and
much.
for your advocacy for the program and for helping people to get over that initial hurdle if they're not entirely comfortable and figure out what their sweater style is, because that's really important.
Sure. And I think also for a lot of people, um, knowing that custom fit patterns are, they can be counted on. You know, I don't know how many people you've talked to, but I've seen dozens of people get patterns on Ravelry that are poorly written. They don't work. They're not designers. So, I mean, Amy Herzog's stuff and the custom fit program, the patterns work. You
They
know,
work.
they
And
work.
it's been very interesting to get sweater patterns in custom fit tech edited. But they are.
Really?
Yeah.
So, what do you mean tech edited? Like something that somebody else has done, or what?
So technical editing is having an editor who will go through your patterns to make sure that the language makes sense to a user, to make sure that the calculations make sense, to go through and do that detailed work, which is much easier if you have a standard pattern that can be looked at. So it's the type of work Kate Atherley does for Nitty magazine.
I see.
And so trying to figure out how to do that with a custom fit pattern has been really interesting.
I imagine. Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah.
So tell people again where they can find you, what
So
your username is on Instagram and Facebook, and where else they can
we
find
are
you.
Custom Fit Knits on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we can be found at customfit.com or amyherzogdesigns.com.
And the
Important I
difference
know that.
between those two sites is
Right now, one just refers to the other.
okay. All right.
They will end up split at some point.
So Amy will have her thing, and you'll have yours.
Yeah, so we'll have them living in separate spaces.
All right. So what's on your needles? Before we go, last question. What's on your needles right now?
Right now, I am working on what will theoretically be a new design. But I can show the back, and it's been trying to figure out what this tweed yarn wants to grow into.
Oh, that's
and it's
pretty.
been interesting to try and figure out what a really strongly tweedy yarn wants to become. So yeah, that's what I've been working on right now.
Nice. We have a nice tweed that our in-house dyer is excited about. So maybe that would be a perfect blend.
Yeah, something nice and simple that lets the tweed stand out. And I'm also working on something else that's sort of textured, with a farm yarn from a local farm. Because this is something I'm really excited about, being able to work with a lot of smaller batch yarns.
Nice. Very pretty. So 2 at a time, 2 sweaters. What's the most you have for needles?
There's definitely more than 2 in my office right now. I like to have a bunch of different sizes. So I have different size needles, so my hands aren't always working with the same size all day, every day. So I'll often have a sock on the go and a sweater on the go and a bulkier sweater on the go, so that it changes the grip on my fingers.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, it helps with the long term.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking.
Thank you so much for having me.
How busy you are. When I reached out to you, and in the summer, and you were like, after this new
summer was wild.
Say again.
Summer was wild.
I'm sorry, you can't hear me, right? Did I close my thing?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I couldn't. I must have hit something. Anyway, but thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. And Like I said, if you are not already a Custom Fit customer, contact me. I would love to hook you up with Custom Fit, help you take your measurements, help you get started. Through our membership site, we have a live Custom Fit class every Sunday. So that's super, super good, kind of to help you figure out, how you'd like things to fit and working through the pattern if it's new to you. So so thank you for joining me. And I wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.